Right now, at a distance of 2.5 million light-years, the Andromeda galaxy is hurtling toward our Milky Way at a staggering speed of 400,000 kilometers per hour. To put that in perspective, at that speed you could travel from the Earth to the Moon in just under an hour, and it cannot be stopped. Every second you breathe, the gap between our two cosmic islands shrinks by over 100 kilometers. But this is not just a simple collision. Therefore, what is coming is a 4 billion year dance of death, a chaotic symphony of gravity radiation and unimaginable destruction that will rewrite the very fabric of our cosmic neighborhood. You might think the physical collision of a trillion stars is the ultimate nightmare, but the reality is far more terrifying. The true danger isn't the crash itself, it is the invisible monsters that wake up in the dark. Let us fast forward to 2 billion years from now. The night sky is no longer a canvas of tiny twinkling dots. Instead, it is dominated by a terrifyingly beautiful glowing slash of light that grows larger every single night. Andromeda, it has gone from a faint smudge to a colossal swirling vortex of billions of stars completely dominating our heavens. Seeing Andromeda fill our night sky would be the most breathtaking sight in human history. But as the first gas clouds collide, a silent killer is unleashed across the cosmos, and our solar system is caught right in the crossfire. You see, galaxies are not just made of stars. They are surrounded by massive invisible halos of dark matter and superheated gas. These halos are so vast that they are already touching long before the stars themselves ever cross paths. When these colossal gas halos finally crash into one another, they do not just politely pass by, they ignite. Shockwaves of unimaginable scale ripple through the interstellar medium, but the individual stars within the galaxies are still too far apart to physically hit one another. Space is simply too empty. Therefore, the immediate destruction begins not with a fiery impact, but with the cold, invisible hand of gravity. The gravitational pull of a trillion stars from Andromeda begins to tug violently at the very edges of our Milky Way. The delicate, mathematically perfect spiral arms of our home galaxy are subjected to tidal forces so immense that they begin to stretch, warp, and distort. It is like watching a magnificent cosmic whirlpool being ripped apart from the outside in. And what happens to the billions of star systems caught within these collapsing arms? They are violently thrown out of their stable ancient orbits. For our solar system, this marks the beginning of a terrifying and entirely unpredictable rollercoaster ride. The Sun, along with the Earth and the other remaining planets, will be violently ejected from our comfortable, quiet position in the galactic suburbs. We might be hurled outward into the absolute zero temperature and pitch black void of intergalactic space, exiled to wander alone for eternity. Or worse, we could be dragged inward, plunging directly into the chaotic radiation-soaked core of the two merging galaxies. But before our final trajectory is even decided, the gravitational chaos reaches our immediate cosmic backyard. The Oort cloud, this massive spherical shell of icy debris and ancient comets surrounding our solar system, has remained relatively undisturbed for 4.5 billion years. But as the galactic tides shift, this delicate balance is shattered. Billions of massive comets and frozen asteroids are suddenly knocked out of their stable distant orbits. Therefore, they begin to rain down toward the inner solar system in a relentless apocalyptic bombardment. Imagine looking up and seeing a sky filled with thousands of incoming comets every single night, not as beautiful fleeting streaks of light, but as massive kinetic weapons hurtling toward the inner planets. Even if humanity or whatever strange descendants we might have left had somehow managed to survive the naturally expanding boiling sun of this distant future era, this celestial bombardment would turn the surface of our planet into a molten cratered wasteland, long before the two galactic cores ever merge. It is a slow, agonizing, and spectacular prelude to the main event. And as the massive comets continue to fall, the sky above continues to morph. The once familiar constellations that guided our ancient ancestors are torn apart and erased forever. The Milky Way we know is dead, but the gravitational dance between the two galaxies is only just beginning to accelerate. The two massive cosmic islands swing past each other in their first major encounter. As they do, they pull incredibly long glittering tails of stars, gas and dust behind them, like magnificent cosmic streamers stretching across millions of light years. It looks like a beautiful, delicate waltz from afar, but up close it masks the brutal, unforgiving reality of what is happening inside. Whole planetary systems are being brutally torn from their parent stars. Millions of rogue planets now wander the dark, freezing instantly in the permanent absence of a sun. And yet this is only the first pass. Gravity is a relentless, inescapable master. It pulls them back together. The momentum slows, the cosmic dance halts, and the two battered galaxies turn back to face each other for a second, even more violent and definitive collision. The friction from the colliding gas clouds causes the temperature of the interstellar medium to skyrocket to millions of degrees, and this sudden immense compression of gas triggers a chain reaction that will literally set the remaining universe on fire. The radiation storm from a million supernovas is enough to sterilize entire star systems, yet this cosmic firestorm is mere child's play compared to the ancient titans lurking at the core of both galaxies. Titans that have just found each other. As the two galactic cores plunge toward their final devastating embrace, the environment between the stars undergoes a radical, violent transformation. The vast cool clouds of molecular hydrogen gas that once floated peacefully in the spiral arms of both the Milky Way and Andromeda are now brutally slammed together, and this incredible friction and physical compression act as a profound cosmic trigger. Suddenly, millions of colossal nebulas ignite simultaneously across the merging chaotic structure. We have officially entered the starburst era. Throughout the newly merging galaxy, millions upon millions of giant brilliant blue stars flare into existence in a mere fraction of cosmic time. This is a rate of star formation thousands of times higher than anything our galaxy has experienced in the last 10 billion years. These newborn stellar giants, classified as massive O-type and B-type stars, burn with a ferocity and luminosity that completely outshines the older, calmer stars of the original galaxies. They pump out unbelievable amounts of ultraviolet radiation, illuminating the surrounding remnants of gas and dust, and painting the cosmic battlefield in vibrant, glowing hues of neon pink, deep violet and electric blue. But these massive hyperactive newborn stars are doomed from the very moment of their violent creation. The fundamental laws of astrophysics dictate that the brighter a star burns, the shorter its lifespan will be. They consume their internal nuclear fuel at a reckless, entirely unsustainable pace, fighting a losing battle against the crushing inward pull of their own immense gravity. Therefore, within just a few million years, an incredibly brief moment on the galactic clock, these giant stars begin to exhaust their core energy, and they die in the most spectacular, terrifying and destructive manner known to modern physics. They detonate across the twisted, mangled and unrecognizable arms of what was once our quiet Milky Way, a relentless, deafening storm of core collapse. Supernova explosions erupts. It is a literal chain reaction of stellar death. Imagine standing on a hypothetical surviving planet and looking up at night sky where a new blindingly bright star appears every few days. Each new explosion outshines the full moon, casting sharp, moving shadows across the barren landscape, only to slowly fade over weeks, only to be immediately replaced by another detonation and another. And another. It is a perpetual, unending fireworks display of apocalyptic proportions, and with every single explosion, an invisible, deadly and unstoppable wave of high-energy gamma radiation X-rays and superheated plasma is blasted outward into the surrounding space at a significant fraction of the speed of light. This cosmic radiation storm is not just a magnificent light show for astronomical observers, it is an extinction-level event on a truly galactic scale. If any terrestrial rocky planets in the surrounding thousands of light years had somehow managed to stubbornly hold onto their atmospheres, their deep liquid oceans, or any clinging, desperate forms of biological life, This relentless bombardment of gamma rays would strip them completely bare. The intense high-frequency radiation would literally boil away their protective ozone layers, shatter their water molecules and violently evaporate their atmospheres into the vacuum of space, leaving behind nothing but sterile, deeply irradiated and violently baked spheres of dead rock. Entire star systems are completely sterilized, swept clean of any potential for life for billions of years to come. But even this apocalyptic firestorm of exploding stars, this localized hellscape of radiation and death, is merely a preliminary sideshow. It is just the warm-up act. The true titans of this cosmic collision, the ancient unfathomable monsters that have been patiently waiting in the dark for billions of years, have finally been drawn together by the inescapable crushing web of gravity. Lurking at the very center of the Milky Way galaxy is Sagittarius, a star, a supermassive black hole with a mass approximately 4 million times that of our Sun. For countless eons, it has been a relatively quiet sleeping giant, only occasionally snacking on a stray unfortunate star or a wandering molecular gas cloud that happened to drift too close to its event horizon. But the black hole at the core of the Andromeda galaxy is a completely different, far more terrifying beast. It is a true monster, a heavyweight champion of the local group weighing in at a staggering 140 million times the mass of our Sun. It is over 30 times more massive and infinitely more destructive than our own central black hole. As the two galactic centers finally inexorably merge into a single chaotic core, these two unfathomable titans begin a terrifying high-speed orbital dance. The intense chaotic gravitational friction between the two supermassive black holes violently stirs the surrounding incredibly dense ocean of gas dust and shredded stellar material, and as they spiral closer and closer to one another, locked in a death spiral that bends the very fabric of space-time, they begin to gorge themselves. They ruthlessly feed on the infinite supply of fresh raw material violently thrown directly into their path by the galactic collision. The incredibly dense accretion disks, swirling vortexes of superheated matter, rotating at nearly the speed of light around both black holes, begin to glow with terrifying, blinding intensity. As the gas is superheated by extreme friction to billions of degrees, the sleeping giants have fully violently awakened. Therefore, an astronomical phenomenon of unimaginable power known as a quasar is suddenly born right in our cosmic backyard. The combined energy output from the violent feeding frenzy of these two supermassive black holes creates a central beacon of light, heat, and radiation so incredibly intense that it completely outshines the combined total light of all the hundreds of billions of stars in the two merging galaxies combined. It is a focal point of pure, unadulterated energy, a brilliant, blinding, and hyper-focused beam of destructive energy. A relativistic astrophysical jet is blasted outward from the magnetic poles of the supermassive black holes. These jets, powered by the rotation of the black holes and the twisting of intense magnetic fields, pierce through the thick, choking clouds of galactic dust and shoot out into the cold intergalactic void for millions of light years. If our solar system, now adrift and tumbling blindly in the chaotic gravitational currents of the merging core, happens to pass directly through the path of this unimaginable energy beam, the entire Earth, the Sun, and every planet in our system would be instantly, painlessly vaporized, broken down into fundamental subatomic particles in a fraction of a millisecond. But even if we somehow manage to miraculously avoid the direct annihilating blast of the quasar jets, the gravitational chaos in the central region is absolute and inescapable. The sheer terrifying force of the two supermassive black holes orbiting each other at a significant fraction of the speed of light creates massive physical ripples in the very fabric of the universe. These gravitational waves carry so much kinetic energy that they further disrupt and shatter the orbits of millions of nearby ancient stars. Countless entire solar systems are swallowed whole, completely torn apart by tidal forces, and disappearing forever beyond the absolute darkness of the event horizons of the twin monsters. Millions of other stars are subjected to the ultimate cosmic slingshot effect, violently ejected from the dense core at millions of kilometers per hour. These hypervelocity stars, carrying their dead planets with them, are cast out into the dark, freezing expanse of the universe, exiled forever from the newly formed cosmic empire, doomed to wander the infinite nothingness alone. The sheer scale of the violence, the destruction of matter, and the warping of time itself is impossible for the human mind to fully comprehend. But the chaotic orbital dance of the Titans cannot last forever. In a final cataclysmic and deafening crescendo, the two supermassive black holes finally touch. They merge into a single, unimaginable and infinitely dense singularity. The final collision releases a shockwave of pure gravitational energy so unbelievably powerful that it physically distorts the shape of the entire newly formed galaxy, sending a final violent shudder through the cosmos. When the colossal blinding flash of the active quasar finally slowly subsides as the surrounding gas is completely consumed or blown away, and the twin titans become one silent, massive ruler of the dark, the era of destruction finally comes to an end. But the galaxy that remains is forever changed, deeply scarred and fundamentally broken. When the cosmic dust finally settles after billions of years of unrelenting war, a new empire is born from the ashes, but do not let the grand sweeping size of Milomeda fool you. This new galaxy is not a paradise of creation, it is a graveyard. The violent quasar that once blazed with the fury of 1 trillion suns finally runs out of fuel. The supermassive black hole at the center of the newly forged Milomeda galaxy has eaten its fill, consuming the vast reserves of gas and dust that were violently funneled into its maw during the galactic collision. As the colossal accretion disk thins out and cools down, the blinding jets of relativistic energy slowly flicker and die out. The heart of the galaxy goes dark once more, returning to a state of quiet, brooding slumber. But the galaxy surrounding this sleeping giant has been fundamentally, irreversibly transformed. The Milky Way and Andromeda, two of the most magnificent spiral galaxies in the local universe, have been completely erased from existence. In their place stand a colossal misshapen behemoth, the delicate, mathematically perfect spiral arms, the glowing nebulas, and the dark lanes of interstellar dust that once defined our cosmic home are gone. They have been violently mashed together, their intricate structures completely obliterated by billions of years of gravitational warfare. What remains is a massive featureless elliptical galaxy. It is a giant glowing sphere, an amorphous blob of older stars swarming in chaotic randomized orbits around the central black hole like a chaotic swarm of angry bees. And this profound structural change is not just a matter of cosmic aesthetics. It signifies the permanent death of the galaxy's ability to create life. You see, a galaxy's youth and vitality are entirely dependent on its supply of cold, dense molecular hydrogen gas. This gas is the fundamental building block of stars, the cosmic clay from which new solar systems and potential cradles of life are sculpted. But the horrific violence of the galactic merger has completely exhausted this precious resource. The incredible compression of the interstellar medium during the early stages of the collision ignited the starburst era, forcing the galaxy to consume its reserves of gas at an astronomical suicidal rate. Millions of massive brilliant blue stars were born all at once, only to die just as quickly in catastrophic supernova explosions. And the shockwaves from these millions of detonations, combined with the unimaginable outward pressure exerted by the quasar jets from the feeding supermassive black hole, achieved something truly devastating. They physically blew the remaining unburned hydrogen gas completely out of the galaxy. The powerful galactic winds literally swept Milomeda clean, purging it of the very fuel it needs to sustain its own existence. Therefore, this colossal new galactic empire is completely irreversibly sterile. It has been stripped of its reproductive organs, The cosmic machinery that once churned out new stellar nurseries, protoplanetary disks, and vibrant young stars has been completely shut down forever. The era of creation is officially over, and a long, slow, agonizing era of cosmic aging begins, because no new stars can ever be born in Milomeda. The overall demographic of the galaxy shifts dramatically. The brilliant, hot and massive blue stars that once illuminated the spiral arms with their fierce, energetic light have all long since detonated, leaving behind only dead, highly dense remnants like neutron stars and stellar mass black holes. What remains to populate the vast, sprawling expanse of Milomeda are the survivors. These are the ancient low-mass stars, the yellow dwarfs, the orange dwarfs, and the incredibly numerous red dwarfs. These stars burn their nuclear fuel slowly, conservatively, and at much lower temperatures. Therefore, the overall colour of the entire galaxy undergoes a profound and melancholic transformation. The vibrant, youthful blue and white glow of the Milky Way is replaced by a dull, dim, and sickly reddish-orange hue. In the field of astrophysics, galaxies that have undergone this brutal transformation and lost their star-forming capabilities are referred to by a chillingly accurate term. They are called red and dead. Milomeda has become a cosmic retirement home, a sprawling, glowing graveyard of aging stars slowly ticking down the clock toward their inevitable demise. But what would this terrifying new reality look like from the surface of a hypothetical planet? Let us imagine that by some miraculous intervention of physics, a rocky planet orbiting a stable red dwarf star managed to survive the chaotic gravitational slingshots, the intense radiation storms of the supernovas, and the blinding fury of the central quasar. Let us imagine that an observer stands on the surface of this barren, heavily scarred world and looks up at the night sky. The view would be completely alien, unrecognizable to anyone who ever called the Earth home. The iconic glowing band of the Milky Way, the dense river of starlight that has inspired human mythology and scientific wonder for millennia, would be completely gone. Because Milomeda is an elliptical galaxy, its stars are no longer confined to a flat rotating disk. Instead, they swarm in a vast three-dimensional halo. Therefore, the night sky of this future world would not have a concentrated band of light. Instead, the entire sky in every single direction would be uniformly filled with a blinding, scattered haze of stars. The sheer density of stars in the core of an elliptical galaxy is staggeringly high. The sky would be so incredibly bright with the collective glow of billions of ancient red and orange stars that true darkness would never actually fall. The concept of night would cease to exist. It would be a perpetual twilight illuminated by a sea of dying embers. But while the sky above might be crowded with stars, the galaxy as a whole is embarking on a terrifying journey of absolute crushing isolation. Because while gravity has won the battle locally pulling the Milky Way and Andromeda together into this massive glowing tomb, a much darker and more powerful force is winning the war on a universal scale. Dark energy, this mysterious, invisible and repulsive force that permeates the vacuum of space, is constantly accelerating the expansion of the universe. It is physically stretching the fabric of space-time, pushing galaxy clusters further and further apart at an ever-increasing speed. Therefore, as the billions of years continue to roll by, and as the ancient stars of Milomeda slowly burn through their remaining reserves of hydrogen fuel, the universe outside the galaxy is fundamentally changing. The other distant galaxies, the faint smudges of light that we can currently see with our most powerful telescopes, are being carried away by the relentless expansion of space. They are crossing the cosmological horizon, receding from us faster than the speed of light, and as they do, their light can no longer reach us. They literally disappear from the observable universe, fading into the impenetrable absolute darkness of the cosmic void. Milomeda, the massive victorious empire born from the ashes of two magnificent spirals, is destined to be entirely, utterly alone. The spectacular, violent collision that forged it was the last significant event in its history. From this point forward, nothing new will ever happen. The galaxy is an island cut off from the rest of the cosmos, adrift in an expanding ocean of infinite nothingness. The cosmic dance of death has ended, but the true horror is the silence that follows. The vibrant, dynamic and chaotic universe that we currently inhabit is slowly fading away, replaced by an empty, chilling void, where gravity and dark energy dictate a cold, lonely end. And yet the slow death of Milomeda is a process that will take trillions upon trillions of years. The red dwarfs, burning their fuel with incredible efficiency, will stubbornly cling to life long after the universe around them has gone completely dark. The red dwarfs, burning their fuel with incredible efficiency, will stubbornly cling to life long after the universe around them has gone completely dark. These tiny, resilient stars are the ultimate survivalists of the cosmos, because they mix their internal hydrogen fuel completely through convection. They do not leave unburned hydrogen in their outer layers like our Sun does. Therefore, they can burn for trillions of years, outlasting the magnificent spiral galaxies that birthed them by unimaginable expanses of time. But even these stubborn embers cannot burn forever. Eventually, the very last red dwarf in the Milomeda galaxy will exhaust its final atom of hydrogen. It will not explode in a glorious supernova. It will simply shrink, collapsing under its own gravity until the strange rules of quantum mechanics halt its descent. It becomes a white dwarf, a dead stellar core made of incredibly dense electron-degenerate matter. A single teaspoon of this material would weigh tons on Earth. And for trillions upon trillions of years, these white dwarfs will sit in the dark, slowly radiating their leftover heat into the freezing void of the expanding universe. They are the glowing ghosts of the Milomeda galaxy, silently haunting the elliptical graveyard. But the universe is relentless. As the eons stretch into numbers so vast they lose all meaning, even the white dwarfs will cool completely. They will freeze solid, their carbon and oxygen atoms locking into rigid crystal lattices. They become black dwarfs. These are theoretical objects, completely dark frozen spheres of ultra-dense diamond and ash. The universe is currently too young to contain even a single black dwarf. But in the incredibly distant future of Milomeda, the galaxy will be composed entirely of them. Trillions of invisible frozen husks wandering blindly through an absolute crushing darkness. The once brilliant and violent empire of Milomeda will be reduced to a swarm of dead cinders, and yet the invisible hand of gravity will still be at work. Over timescales measured in quintillions of years, these wandering black dwarfs will randomly interact with one another. When two dead stars pass close by, they exchange orbital energy. One gets a kick and is ejected from the galaxy, entirely cast out into the infinite void. The other loses energy and falls deeper into the center of the galaxy. Therefore, the Milomeda galaxy slowly, inexorably evaporates. It spits its dead children out into the darkness while feeding the rest to the central supermassive black hole. Ultimately, only one thing remains of the glorious collision between the Milky Way and Andromeda, the supermassive black hole itself. A solitary, unimaginable monster sitting alone in an empty universe. But the story does not end there, because even black holes are not truly immortal. Through a strange quantum mechanical process known as Hawking radiation, the supermassive black hole will begin to slowly, agonizingly leak its mass away. Virtual particles popping in and out of existence at the very edge of the event horizon will slowly drain the monster's energy. This process is incredibly slow. It will take a Google years, a number represented by a 1 followed by 100 zeros for the supermassive black hole of Milomeda to completely evaporate. But eventually it will. In its final moments, as it shrinks down to the size of a subatomic particle, it will violently detonate in a final flash of high-energy gamma rays. And then nothing, the Milomeda galaxy, the epic collision, the billions of stars, the planets, the life that may have existed will be completely erased. The universe will enter the dark era, a state of maximum entropy, where nothing ever happens forever. This is the ultimate inescapable destiny of our cosmic neighborhood. It is a terrifying, deeply humbling realization. but it also gives a profound, beautiful meaning to our current existence. We happen to live in the brief golden age of the universe. We exist in a time when the galaxies are still vibrant and alive, when the night sky is filled with the light of active burning stars, and when the cosmic dance of creation and destruction is still unfolding before our very eyes. We are the lucky few who get to witness the spectacular beauty of the Milky Way before the dark times come. The impending collision with Andromeda is not just a scientific curiosity, it is a harsh reminder of our own fragile temporary place in a violent, uncaring cosmos. Milomeda is our ultimate destiny, a spectacular end to the Milky Way, a fiery crucible that will forge a dead empire. But next week we will uncover a cosmic anomaly even more terrifying, a rogue black hole currently wandering dangerously close to our cosmic neighborhood, completely invisible and hungry. Hit subscribe now because you absolutely do not want to miss what is hunting us in the dark. You might think the collision of the Milky Way and Andromeda is the ultimate cosmic climax. You might believe that once the dust settles and the newly forged Milomeda galaxy emerges from the billions of years of gravitational warfare, the story of our cosmic neighborhood is finally over. It is a comforting thought, the idea that after such unimaginable violence, the universe grants us a permanent quiet peace. But looking at the grand scale of the universe, Milomeda is just a tiny dead raft being violently dragged into the greatest hurricane reality has ever known. To understand the true scale of the nightmare that waits, we must first look at the corpse we are riding on. As we established before, Milomeda is not a paradise of creation. It is a sprawling, glowing graveyard. The magnificent, mathematically perfect spiral arms that once defined our home are gone, mashed into a featureless, amorphous blob of older stars. The vibrant blue giants that once illuminated the nebulas have all detonated in catastrophic supernovas, stripping the galaxy of its vital star-forming gases. What remains is a chillingly accurate classification known to astrophysicists as red and dead. It is a cosmic retirement home populated almost entirely by ancient low-mass red dwarfs and orange dwarfs. These stars burn their nuclear fuel slowly, conservatively, casting a dull, dim and sickly reddish-orange hue across the entire elliptical expanse. If you were to stand on a hypothetical surviving rocky planet within this new empire, you would not see the iconic glowing band of the Milky Way. Instead, the sky in every single direction would be uniformly filled with a blinding scattered haze of stars. The density of the galactic core is so staggeringly high that true darkness never falls. The concept of night ceases to exist, replaced by a perpetual twilight illuminated by a sea of dying embers. It is a lonely, melancholic existence. You might look up at this crowded, unchanging sky and feel a profound sense of stillness. You might think that here, isolated in the expanding void of the universe, nothing will ever happen again. You would be dead wrong. The illusion of stillness is the universe's greatest trick. While gravity has pulled our immediate neighbours together into this glowing tomb, a much larger, darker and infinitely more powerful force has already locked its invisible jaws around Milomeda. We are not floating peacefully in the dark. We are falling. Right now, even as you listen to this, our Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy, and the dozens of smaller dwarf galaxies that make up our local group are hurtling through intergalactic space at an incomprehensible speed of over 2 million kilometers per hour. We are being violently dragged across the cosmos, but not by a single black hole or a rogue star. We are being pulled by an invisible monster so massive, so profoundly heavy, that it bends the very fabric of space-time across hundreds of millions of light years. It is a gravitational anomaly that has haunted astronomers for decades, a cosmic ghost hiding behind the thick, choking dust of our own galactic plane. They call it the Great Attractor. Imagine a river not made of water but of entire galaxies. Just as water flows down a mountain toward the ocean, galaxies flow along the invisible valleys of space-time created by dark matter and gravity. Milomeda is merely a single drop of water caught in a torrential cosmic current known as the dark flow. and this current is dragging us along with 100,000 other galaxies toward a singular, unfathomable destination. The scale of this structure is impossible for the human mind to fully comprehend. It is not a galaxy. It is not even a cluster of galaxies. It is a supercluster, a continent of light and dark matter known as Laniakea, which translates from Hawaiian to immense heaven. Laniakea stretches across 520 million light-years of space, containing a mass of 100 quadrillion suns. And Milomeda sits out on one of its furthest, most isolated fringes like a solitary cabin on the edge of a massive collapsing continent. Every star you've ever seen, every galaxy you've ever heard of, every distant quasar and fading nebula in our local universe is part of this massive interconnected web, and every single one of them is rushing toward the exact same terrifying focal point. The great attractor is the gravitational anchor of this entire supercluster. It is a region of space so incredibly dense that it dictates the movement of everything within 1 billion light-years. Yet for a long time we could not see it. It lies hidden behind the zone of avoidance, the thickest, dustiest part of the Milky Way's disk, obscured from our optical telescopes, like a predator hiding in the tall grass. But we can feel its pull. We can measure the relentless, inescapable acceleration of our entire galactic neighborhood as we fall deeper and deeper into its gravitational well. The journey will take billions upon billions of years. As Milomeda slowly ages, its red dwarfs burning out one by one, the voyage across the intergalactic void will be silent and cold. The expanding universe driven by the mysterious dark energy will continue to push the other distant superclusters away, isolating Laniakea in an ocean of absolute nothingness. The night sky of Milomeda will remain a static, glowing haze, betraying none of the unimaginable motion occurring on the grandest scales. The inhabitants of this dead galaxy will feel entirely alone, unaware that they are participating in the largest mass migration in the history of the cosmos. But the dark flow cannot last forever. The river of galaxies must eventually reach its ocean. The inexorable pull of the great attractor ensures that Laniakea is not just a structure. It is a destiny of convergence, of compression, and of ultimate catastrophic violence. As the millions of galaxies draw closer to the gravitational heart of the supercluster, the immense empty spaces between them will begin to shrink. The intergalactic medium, the tenuous invisible gas that permeates the void, will be squeezed and compressed, its temperature skyrocketing to millions of degrees. The graceful, silent fall will transform into a chaotic, deafening rush. I had always thought that the slow, agonizing death of billions of red dwarfs in the isolated graveyard of Milomeda was the most terrifying and lonely event imaginable. It seemed like the ultimate whimper at the end of a violent cosmic life. But the truth of what happens next, when the real ghost of the universe reveals itself and the cosmic continent finally begins to shatter, is where the definition of true terror officially begins. The great attractor is not an object you can simply point a telescope at and observe. It is a massive gravitational anomaly, a terrifying focal point whose true nature has been hidden from humanity for centuries. It sits concealed behind the zone of avoidance, the thickest, dustiest part of the Milky Way's galactic plane. For generations, looking in that direction was like trying to stare through a brick wall of cosmic debris. But as our technology evolved, as we learned to see the universe in X-rays and radio waves that pierce through the dust, the horrifying truth began to emerge. We saw massive clusters of galaxies like the Norma cluster and the Centaurus cluster, acting as gigantic cosmic signposts, and every single one of them was pointing toward a monster lurking in the dark. This monster is the heart of Laniakea. It beats with a gravitational rhythm that dictates the fate of 100,000 galaxies. Imagine looking at a map of Earth tracing the vast networks of rivers and streams as they carve through mountains and valleys, all eventually converging into the deep, dark ocean. Now zoom out until the Earth is less than a speck of dust, until the entire Milky Way is just a single insignificant drop of water. The cosmic web is the geography of the universe. It is a staggering structure made of dark matter filaments stretching across billions of light years. Galaxies do not float aimlessly in the void. They are bound to these glowing filaments strung together like pearls on an infinitely long invisible thread. And where these cosmic threads intersect, they form superclusters. Laniakea is our home continent in this vast cosmic web, but this continent is not a stable landmass. It is fluid. It is flowing. Astrophysicists call this terrifying phenomenon the dark flow. It is a mind-bending concept that suggests something outside of our observable universe. Something incredibly massive and ancient is pulling entire superclusters toward a specific region of space. The Great Attractor is merely the local epicenter of this incomprehensible current. For billions of years, the red and dead elliptical blob of Milomeda will be carried along this dark river. The ancient dying stars within our galaxy will continue their slow, agonizing decline, completely unaware of the titanic forces at play on the grandest scales. From the surface of our hypothetical surviving planet, the sky would still be a blinding scattered haze of red dwarfs. The inhabitants would have no visual cue that their entire galactic empire is hurtling toward an inevitable catastrophic convergence. Because the distances involved are so vast, the journey feels incredibly slow to a biological observer. But in the grand cosmic time frame, it is a terrifying freefall. We are plunging into a gravitational abyss. As Milomeda travels deeper into the heart of Laniakea, the environment outside the galaxy begins to undergo a profound and terrifying transformation. The empty space between galaxies, the intergalactic void that was once thought to be a quiet, frozen nothingness, begins to show its true violent nature. The dark flow is not an empty river. It is choked with the debris of 1 billion cosmic collisions. We are not traveling alone. 100,000 other galaxies are making the exact same journey, accelerating as they fall closer to the Great Attractor. The sheer concentration of mass in this converging region begins to physically warp the very fabric of space-time. Light from distant quasars attempting to pierce through this dense, chaotic sector of the universe is violently bent, stretched, and distorted by the immense gravitational lenses created by the converging galaxy clusters. It is like looking at the universe through a shattered, infinitely thick piece of glass. The visual distortion is a warning sign of the immense physical compression that's occurring all around us. The galaxies are being squeezed together by an inescapable force. The vast halos of superheated gas and dark matter that surround each individual galaxy begin to overlap and violently interact long before the stars ever touch. The friction generated by these colossal invisible halos crashing into one another causes the temperature of the intergalactic medium to skyrocket to tens of millions of degrees. Space itself begins to boil. The quiet, isolated graveyard of Milomeda is suddenly subjected to an external heat and pressure that it has not experienced since its violent birth. The dark flow is forcing the galaxies into a cosmic bottleneck. It is a slow-motion stampede of titans, and the Great Attractor is the wall they are all destined to crush against. But the most terrifying realization is that the Great Attractor is not the final destination. It is merely a way station, a temporary gathering point on a much more devastating journey. As Laniakea flows toward this gravitational anomaly, the entire supercluster is being pulled toward an even larger, more massive structure lurking just beyond it. The Shapley supercluster. This is the true heavyweight champion of our local universe, a concentration of mass so immense that it makes our entire galactic continent look like a fragile drifting island. The gravitational pull of Shapley is so overwhelming that it is dragging both the Great Attractor and the entirety of Laniakea toward it at a staggering speed of over 2 million kilometers per hour. Before Milomeda even reaches the center of this cosmic stampede, the sheer tidal forces of the surrounding galaxy clusters begin to tear at its outer edges. Millions of the ancient red dwarfs, the stubborn survivors of the Milky Way and Andromeda collision, are violently stripped away from the main body of the elliptical galaxy. They are cast out into the boiling intergalactic medium, instantly incinerated, or left to wander the chaotic space between converging clusters, Milomeda is being slowly dismantled piece by piece as it is dragged toward its doom. We are hurtling straight into the heart of that great gravitational anomaly, and absolutely nothing can stop it. But when we finally arrive, what awaits us is not a peaceful cosmic harbour or a quiet resting place. Therefore, a multi-galactic shipwreck of continental proportions is about to unfold. The journey across the dark flow brings us to the precipice of the most violent physical event since the dawn of time itself. As the Laniakea supercluster is relentlessly dragged toward the Shapley concentration, the scale of the impending disaster defies all human logic and comprehension. We are no longer talking about the simple isolated collision of two galaxies, or even a localized cluster merging in the dark. We are witnessing the continental drift of the entire universe, accelerating into a head-on unavoidable cosmic collision of absolute proportions. The invisible borders of these two unimaginable superclusters, vast regions of space that span hundreds of millions of light years across the void, finally begin to overlap. And when they do, the very concept of empty space is fundamentally and violently rewritten. Most people imagine the void between galaxies as a perfect frozen vacuum, a place of eternal silence and absolute zero temperatures. But this is a profound misconception. The intergalactic medium is actually filled with a highly tenuous, almost imperceptible web of ionized gas, primordial plasma, and dark matter. Under normal everyday cosmic circumstances, this scattered gas is so incredibly sparse that it is virtually undetectable to ordinary instruments. But as the titanic masses of Laniakea and Shapley smash together, this microscopic scattering of lonely atoms is suddenly subjected to a physical compression of biblical proportions. The combined inescapable gravitational momentum of 100 quadrillion suns forces this invisible gas into an ever-shrinking, suffocating volume. The kinetic energy of the multi-galactic collision is instantly and brutally converted into thermal energy. The temperature of the intergalactic void, a place that has been freezing cold and silent for billions upon billions of years, suddenly and violently skyrockets. It jumps from a few degrees above absolute zero to tens of millions and eventually billions of degrees. The seemingly empty space between the falling galaxies literally catches fire. It becomes a roiling, chaotic and superheated ocean of intense X-ray emitting plasma. For the countless rogue planets and wandering orphan stars that were cast out into the void during earlier galactic mergers, this sudden heating is an apocalyptic awakening. Billions of years ago, when the Milky Way and Andromeda first violently collided to form our dead home, millions of planets were violently ejected from their safe, stable solar systems. They have been drifting completely alone in the pitch-black, absolute zero temperature of deep intergalactic space, ever since frozen solid in a state of eternal unchanging night. But now, as the monstrous superclusters merge and the void ignites, these dark, lonely worlds find themselves plunging blindly through a solid wall of billion-degree plasma. The sheer physical friction of moving at millions of kilometers per hour through this incredibly dense, superheated intergalactic medium is utterly devastating. They do not need to crash into a star or a rocky asteroid to be completely destroyed. The extreme suffocating heat and the relentless searing radiations simply boil them away. Their frozen ancient atmospheres instantly flash into expanding vapor, their thick icy crusts melt in a fraction of a second, and their dense rocky mantles are violently stripped apart atom by atom, molecule by molecule. Trillions of rogue planets, the silent, forgotten ghosts of the cosmos, evaporate completely into the burning void, erased entirely from existence by the sheer friction of the cosmic ocean. And this invisible, all-consuming firestorm is rapidly closing in on the surviving galaxies themselves. Milomeda, our giant, featureless and dead elliptical home, is caught right in the merciless crossfire of this expanding plasma wave. As it plunges deeper and deeper into the central collision zone, the outer boundaries of our galaxy are subjected to extreme ram pressure stripping. The superheated plasma of the intergalactic medium acts like a colossal cosmic sandblaster of unimaginable scale. It violently and relentlessly tears away the remaining invisible halos of gas and dark matter that once surrounded Milomeda. The ancient dim red dwarf stars that stubbornly populate the outer fringes of our galaxy are caught directly in the chaotic turbulence. They are brutally ripped from their gravitational moorings and cast out into the blazing plasma ocean, where their weak magnetic fields are completely overwhelmed, and their surfaces are scorched by the ambient radiation. From the surface of a hypothetical, deeply buried rocky planet near the core of Milomeda, the night sky would undergo a terrifying and irreversible metamorphosis. The uniform hazy glow of the ancient red dwarfs would suddenly be overshadowed by a blinding, inescapable background illumination. The entire sky in every single direction from horizon to horizon would begin to glow with a sickly, penetrating and lethal X-ray light. It is the literal light of the universe tearing itself apart at the seams. The protective gravitational cocoon of the galaxy is completely failing. And the destruction is not just thermal, it is profoundly structural. As the dense core of Laniakea violently penetrates the gravitational heart of the Shapley supercluster, millions of galaxies are forced into the exact same terrifyingly small region of space. The gravitational crossfire is absolute unadulterated chaos. Massive elliptical and spiral galaxies are smashing into one another at millions of kilometers per hour. Their delicate internal structures, the carefully balanced and mathematically perfect orbits of their billions of stars are shattered instantly upon impact. It is a multi-galactic pileup, a relentless, deafening crushing of cosmic islands until they lose all individual identity and form. The borders and boundaries between the galaxies dissolve completely. Milomeda is no longer a distinct, recognizable entity. It is violently mashed together with thousands of other dead and dying elliptical galaxies, their combined trillions of stars mixing and churning in a terrifying randomized and hyper-accelerated swarm. The universe in this localized region is rapidly reverting to a state of primordial boiling chaos. It is gigantic glowing soup of burning plasma, dense dark matter, and violently colliding dying stars all swirling down a massive inescapable gravitational drains. The sheer kinetic energy released by this unprecedented multi-cluster collision sends massive physical shockwaves rippling through the very fabric of spacetime itself. These gravitational waves are so incredibly powerful that they physically stretch and squeeze the vast distances between the violently colliding stars. Entire planetary systems that miraculously managed to survive the initial heating of the void are now ruthlessly torn apart by the wildly fluctuating gravitational tides. Planets are literally ripped in half, their shattered molten remains, joining the swirling chaotic accretion of the cosmic meat grinder. This is the agonizing death of the cosmic web. The intricate, beautiful and glowing filaments of dark matter that once guided the galaxies across the universe are collapsing in on themselves, violently folding and compressing to form a single incomprehensible knot of absolute mass. The gravitational pull of this newly formed central knot is so extreme, so unbelievably dominant, that it begins to overcome the very expansion of the universe in this localized doomed sector, while the rest of the distant cosmos continues to drift slowly apart, driven by dark energy. This specific region is experiencing a violent, localized big crunch. Everything is falling inward at terrifying speeds. The density of matter in this region reaches levels that completely defy the established laws of standard physics. The millions of individual galaxies have been successfully and brutally crushed into a single hyper-dense and blazing structure. The cosmic sky blazes like a slaughterhouse of galaxies. I had thought this was the absolute peak of violence, the ultimate limit of physical destruction. But deep inside the crushing core of this inferno, the true ancient gods have just awakened. At the core of every single galaxy in the universe lies a dark, sleeping giant. For billions of years, these supermassive black holes have been the silent, brooding rulers of their respective cosmic islands. They are the anchors of gravity, the invisible hearts around which hundreds of billions of stars helplessly orbit. Our own Milky Way was governed by Sagittarius, a star, a modest monster weighing 4 million times the mass of our Sun. Andromeda brought a far more terrifying beast to the creation of Milomeda, a titan of 140 million solar masses. When these two initially merged, it was an event of catastrophic violence. But in the grand, terrifying scale of the Laniakea and Shapley supercluster collision, that ancient merger was nothing more than two microscopic drops of water touching in a vast raging ocean. The multi-galactic pileup that is currently unfolding has forcefully dragged not just two, but hundreds of thousands of supermassive black holes into the exact same chaotic hyper-compressed region of space. Imagine a swarm of invisible, infinitely dense predators, each one capable of swallowing an entire solar system whole, now violently thrown into a microscopic gravitational arena. They are no longer isolated kings. They are competitors in the ultimate cosmic gladiator match, as the billions of stars and the superheated intergalactic plasma swirl into a blinding, featureless soup of destruction. These hundreds of thousands of supermassive black holes begin a terrifying high-speed orbital dance. The sheer concentration of mass is so unimaginably profound that the very fabric of spacetime begins to buckle and warp under the strain. The invisible monsters whip around one another at significant fractions of the speed of light. Their chaotic intersecting orbits generate massive physical ripples in reality itself. These are gravitational waves of an unprecedented apocalyptic magnitude. They are not the subtle microscopic tremors that our primitive human instruments once struggled to detect. These are violent, churning tidal waves of space-time that physically stretch, compress, and shatter the millions of dead and dying stars caught in their immediate path. Countless ancient red dwarfs, the stubborn survivors of Milomeda, and thousands of other dead elliptical galaxies are caught in this invisible blender. They are subjected to tidal forces so extreme that their dense spherical shapes are brutally stretched into long agonizing ribbons of superheated plasma. This is a process astrophysicists call spaghettification, and it is happening on a scale that defies all logic. Entire swaths of the converging galaxies are ripped apart atom by atom, their constituent matter violently funneled into the rapidly growing, blindingly hot accretion disks of the swarming black holes. The sky of this doomed sector of the universe is a perpetual deafening roar of gravitational destruction, but the swarm of titans cannot maintain this chaotic dance forever. Gravity is a relentless, inescapable master, and it demands absolute unification. The hundreds of thousands of supermassive black holes begin to inevitably collide and merge. With every single merger, a shockwave of pure, unadulterated gravitational energy violently shudders through the collapsing supercluster. The black holes grow exponentially larger, heavier, and infinitely more dominant. They consume each other in a terrifying frenzy of cosmic cannibalism, rapidly climbing the mass scale from millions to billions, and finally to hundreds of billions of times the mass of our original Sun. We're no longer dealing with supermassive black holes. We have officially entered the era of the ultramassive titans, and at the very epicenter of this multi-galactic graveyard, the undisputed victor of this gravitational war is finally born. It is the Omega Singularity, an ultramassive black hole of such incomprehensible size and mass that it completely redefines the physical limits of the universe. Its event horizon, the terrifying point of absolutely no return, where even light itself is trapped forever, is larger than the entirety of our ancient solar system. It is a sphere of perfect absolute darkness that could easily swallow the Oort cloud, and still have room to spare for thousands of other planetary systems. This is the new terrifying ruler of the local universe, and it is incredibly unimaginably hungry. The Omega Singularity sits at the absolute bottom of the deepest gravitational well ever created, and falling directly into its inescapable maw is the entire crushed, superheated remains of the Laniakea and Shapley superclusters. Trillions of shredded stars, the boiled remnants of billions of rogue planets, and the vast burning ocean of the intergalactic medium are all violently funneled into the Titan's swirling accretion disk. This disk is a swirling vortex of plasma rotating at nearly the speed of light, extending for light years across the chaotic void. The extreme physical friction and the unimaginable magnetic fields generated by this spinning disk of doom cause the infalling matter to heat up to hundreds of billions of degrees. The sleeping god has fully awakened, and it violently announces its reign to the rest of the dying cosmos. The Omega Singularity ignites into a quasar of unparalleled apocalyptic luminosity. The combined energy output from this singular violent feeding frenzy creates a beacon of light heat and high-energy radiation so incredibly intense that it completely outshines the combined total light of every single star in the entire observable universe. It is a focal point of pure, unadulterated, blinding energy. The X-rays and gamma rays pouring out of this superquasar instantly sterilize and vaporize any macroscopic matter that miraculously managed to survive the initial multi-cluster collision. The radiation is so fierce that it physically pushes against the infalling matter, creating a terrifying tug-of-war between the crushing inward pull of gravity and the outward explosive pressure of light itself. But the true destructive power of the Omega Singularity is channeled through its poles. The twisting, infinitely strong magnetic lines of the ultramassive black hole act like a colossal particle accelerator. They grab a significant portion of the superheated plasma from the inner edge of the accretion disk, just millimeters away from the event horizon, and violently blast it outward into the intergalactic void. These are relativistic astrophysical jets, hyper-focused beams of destructive energy shooting out at 99.99% the speed of light. These twin beams of doom pierce through the choking clouds of shredded galaxies and shoot out for hundreds of millions of light years, physically tearing through the surrounding cosmic web. If the scattered dead remnants of Milomeda happen to pass through the path of this unimaginable energy beam, the individual atoms of the dead stars would be instantly painlessly obliterated, broken down into fundamental subatomic particles in a fraction of a millisecond. Let us imagine for a terrifying moment the journey of a single surviving object, a charred lifeless sphere of dense rock and iron, perhaps the deeply buried core of a long-dead world like Earth, violently torn from its star and sent tumbling helplessly toward the Omega Singularity. This is the ultimate tragic hero's journey in a universe that has completely lost its mind. As this dark, silent world falls deeper into the gravitational well of the ultramassive Titan, it is bathed in the agonizing, blinding light of the superquasar. The surface of the planet is instantly melted into a glowing, churning ocean of liquid rock, but the sheer momentum of its fall prevents it from being completely vaporized before it reaches the edge of the abyss. As the dying world approaches the event horizon, the fundamental laws of physics begin to profoundly, terrifyingly warp. Einstein's theory of general relativity dictates that gravity bends not just space, but time itself. The immense, incomprehensible mass of the Omega Singularity creates a localized time dilation of extreme proportions. For a hypothetical, indestructible observer standing on the melting surface of this falling world, looking out at the rest of the dying universe, the visual experience would be completely mind-shattering, because their local time is slowing down to an absolute crawl compared to the space far away from the black hole. They would perceive the outside universe as wildly, uncontrollably fast-forwarding. They would watch the chaotic, swirling accretion disk spin at impossible, blinding speeds. They would see the remaining thousands of galaxies in the supercluster being sucked into the vortex in a matter of seconds. They would watch the entire multi-billion-year process of the local universe collapsing play out like a violently fast-forwarded movie. The light from the distant, retreating cosmos would become highly blue-shifted, compressed into a piercing high-energy glare as the universe rapidly ages and dies right before their eyes. In the final fraction of a second before the planet crosses the event horizon, the outside universe would appear to flash out of existence entirely, completely consumed by the relentless march of infinite time. And for the rest of the universe, watching this lonely world fall in the illusion is equally terrifying. From a safe distance, if such a place even existed anymore, we would never actually see the planet cross the threshold. The light bouncing off the melting world would be stretched red-shifted by the immense gravity fading to infrared, then microwaves, then radio waves. The planet would appear to slow down, freezing perfectly still, right at the absolute edge of the black hole, slowly fading into eternal invisibility over billions of years. It is a ghost forever trapped in the crushing embrace of the Titan. The Omega Singularity continues to gorge itself, violently consuming the entire multi-galactic continent. It reigns supreme over a profoundly dark and empty region of space, having successfully swallowed the light of 100 quadrillion suns. These ultramassive monsters seem destined to devour the entire local universe. Everyone thought gravity had won the ultimate undeniable victory, proving itself as the absolute master of the cosmos. But on a scale of infinity, a second, far more ruthless and infinitely more terrifying force is beginning its silent, inescapable counterattack. The Omega Singularity has consumed the cosmic continent, gravity. The great architect of the universe appears to have won the ultimate victory. It has successfully crushed the Laniakea and Shapley superclusters into a single unfathomable point of absolute darkness. And as the ultramassive black hole sits in the center of its empty localized graveyard, it seems poised to slowly, inevitably reel in the rest of the cosmos. But gravity is not the only fundamental force dictating the fate of reality. In fact, on the grandest scales of the universe, gravity is completely embarrassingly outmatched. There is a ghost in the cosmic machine, a mysterious repulsive force that permeates the absolute vacuum of space itself. We call it dark energy, and while gravity is busy pulling the local neighborhoods together, dark energy is ruthlessly, violently tearing the entire universe apart. Therefore, a terrifying rebellion is taking place right outside the event horizon of our newly formed Titan. For the first few billion years after the Big Bang, the universe was small and dense enough that the collective gravity of all the galaxies was actively slowing down the cosmic expansion. It was a tug of war that gravity was slowly winning. But as space expanded, the density of matter decreased. The galaxies spread further apart and their gravitational grip on one another began to weaken. Dark energy, however, does not dilute. It is an inherent property of space itself. The more space there is, the more dark energy exists to push it apart. About 5 billion years ago, right around the time our own solar system was forming, from a cloud of dust, a terrifying tipping point was reached. Dark energy finally overpowered gravity on a universal scale. The expansion of the universe stopped slowing down and began to actively, relentlessly accelerate. Fast forward to the era of the Omega Singularity, and this acceleration has reached apocalyptic levels. If you were somehow able to stand near the edge of our isolated, ultramassive black hole and look out into the deep void, you would witness the most profoundly depressing event in the history of existence. The other superclusters, the distant cosmic continents that managed to escape the gravitational pull of Laniakea and Shapley, are not just moving away from us. They are accelerating away at speeds that eventually break the ultimate speed limit of the universe. Albert Einstein taught us that nothing can travel through space faster than the speed of light. But dark energy is not moving objects through space. It is expanding the fabric of space itself, and space has no absolute speed limit. As the void between the remaining superclusters physically stretches, the distant galaxies are carried along with it, like rafts on a swelling ocean. Eventually, the space between us and them is expanding so incredibly fast that the light they emit can no longer keep up. The photons, travelling at a staggering 300,000 kilometers per second, are entirely overwhelmed by the sheer addition of new space being created in front of them. They are like exhausted runners on a cosmic treadmill that is constantly speeding up. The cosmological horizon, the absolute limit of what we can see and interact with in the universe, begins to terrifyingly shrink. One by one, the distant galaxies cross this threshold. They do not fade away slowly or violently explode. They simply slip beyond the veil of reality. They become so profoundly redshifted by the extreme expansion of space that their light stretches into invisible radio waves, flatlines entirely, and then they simply blink out of existence. They cross over into the unobservable universe, forever disconnected from our reality. It is a cosmic erasure on a scale that defies all human comprehension. The universe is physically irreversibly isolating us. The Omega singularity, the victorious, undisputed king of our local cosmic continent, is suddenly trapped in an inescapable quarantine. The night sky, which was once filled with the chaotic, violent light of 100 quadrillion colliding stars, and then the blinding fury of the quasar, is now completely entirely black. There are no distant smudges of light. There are no other galaxies to conquer or merge with. The cosmic microwave background, the ancient afterglow of the Big Bang itself, is stretched so thin by the accelerating expansion that the temperature of the universe drops to a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. It is a freezing, unfeeling cold that permeates everything. There is only the absolute freezing void of an infinitely expanding nothingness. Gravity fought a valiant war, violently crushing everything it could reach into a single perfect sphere of immense mass. But dark energy has won the universe. It has successfully chopped the cosmos up into countless isolated, completely disconnected islands of darkness. Each island is ruled by its own starving, solitary black hole, completely unaware that any other island even exists. The grand interconnected web of the cosmos has been permanently severed. We have entered the era of ultimate crushing cosmic isolation. When the last galaxies drift out of sight, eternal darkness finally falls across the expanding void. You might think this absolute isolation is the final silence of the universe. You might think that here in the impenetrable dark the story finally ends. But the true death of matter happens much slower, and 1,000,000,000,000 times more painfully than anything we have witnessed so far. The cosmos has entered the degenerate era. Time has lost all meaning. When we talk about the future now, we can no longer use simple words like billions or trillions of years. We must use numbers so vast, so incredibly incomprehensible, that they require exponents just to write down. Welcome to the year 10 to the 14th power and beyond. In this incredibly distant epoch, the universe is a profoundly dark and freezing place. The furious, violent light of the Omega singularity quasar has long since burned out its massive accretion disk, completely consumed or blown away into the infinite void. The ultramassive black hole is now a silent, invisible ruler sitting in the absolute center of an empty, expanding darkness. But it is not entirely alone. During the chaotic, multi-galactic collision that birthed this monster, not every single piece of matter was swallowed. The intense gravitational slingshot effects ejected countless dead stars, rogue planets and cold remnants out into the extreme outer halo of the darkness, far beyond the immediate grasp of the event horizon. These survivors are the ghosts of the old universe. They are the white dwarfs, the incredibly dense dead cores of stars like our Sun, and the neutron stars, the crushed remnants of the massive blue giants. For quadrillions of years, these dead stars have been slowly, agonizingly radiating their leftover heat into the freezing vacuum of space. But the universe is relentless. As the eons stretch into numbers that break the human mind, even these incredibly hot stellar corpses eventually cool down completely. They freeze solid. Their internal carbon and oxygen atoms lock into rigid, unbreakable crystal lattices. They become black dwarfs. These are theoretical objects, completely dark, frozen spheres of ultra-dense diamond and ash. The universe is currently too young to contain even a single black dwarf, but in this distant, terrifying future, they are the only forms of stellar matter left. They wander blindly through the absolute crushing darkness, invisible and silent. They are the ultimate cosmic tombstones. You might think that these frozen diamond spheres are eternal. You might believe that matter once cooled and crystallized can last forever in the dark. But physics has a much more disturbing fate in store for the physical universe. We are approaching the year 10 to the 40th power, and in this era, the very fundamental building blocks of reality begin to fail. Protons, the subatomic particles that make up the nucleus of every atom in existence, from the carbon in your DNA to the iron in a black dwarf, are theorized to be unstable over unbelievably long timescales. They begin to decay. It is a process so slow that we have never witnessed it happen. But in the depths of deep time, it is an inescapable mathematical certainty. The frozen solid black dwarfs do not shatter or explode. They simply begin to dissolve, atom by atom, proton by proton. The dense diamond structures break down into lighter subatomic particles and low-energy radiation. The solid matter of the universe is literally evaporating into nothingness. The wandering rogue planets, the frozen asteroids, the dead dust of the cosmic web. Everything made of ordinary matter simply fades away like a ghost in the morning sun. It is a slow, agonizing erasure of physical reality. By the time we reach the year 10 to the 100th power, a number known as a googol, the degenerate era is officially over. All ordinary matter in the universe has been completely, entirely erased. The black dwarfs are gone. The dust is gone. The planets are gone. We have entered the black hole era. The only macroscopic objects left in the entire expanding cosmos are the black holes themselves. And in our isolated, disconnected pocket of the universe, the Omega Singularity sits perfectly alone. It is a sphere of absolute darkness floating in a notion of absolute nothingness. The universe has been reduced to a microscopic collection of incredibly massive gravitational wells, each separated by infinitely expanding distances of dark energy. It is a picture of profound ultimate desolation. But the story of the cosmos does not end with the triumph of the black holes, because even these immortal monsters, these eaters of light and destroyers of galaxies, have a fatal weakness. The legendary physicist Stephen Hawking made a discovery that completely shattered our understanding of black holes. He realized that they are not entirely perfectly black. Because of the strange probabilistic rules of quantum mechanics, empty space is never truly empty. Virtual particle and antiparticle pairs are constantly popping into existence and annihilating each other in a fraction of a millisecond. But when this happens, right exactly on the edge of a black hole event horizon, something terrifying occurs. One particle is sucked into the black hole while the other particle is violently shot out into space. The black hole is leaking. It is slowly, painstakingly bleeding its mass away in the form of what we now call Hawking radiation. For an ultramassive monster like the Omega Singularity, this process is so incredibly agonizingly slow that it makes the evaporation of a black dwarf look like a lightning strike. It will take unimaginably long timescales, perhaps 10 to the power of 120 years, for the Titan to lose a significant fraction of its mass. But time is the one thing this dead universe has in infinite supply. As the quintillions of eons roll by, the Omega Singularity slowly begins to shrink. The ultimate predator of the universe is being starved to death by the fundamental laws of quantum physics. As the black hole loses mass, its event horizon contracts, and the temperature of its Hawking radiation begins to rise. The smaller it gets, the faster it evaporates and the hotter it burns. It is a reverse snowball effect of cosmic death. After an eternity of absolute darkness, a faint localized glow begins to emanate from the shrinking singularity. The invisible monster is finally being forced into the light. The final moments of a black hole life are spectacularly violent. When the Omega Singularity shrinks down to the mass of a large asteroid, it is burning white hot, pouring out intense gamma radiation into the frozen void. And then in the final fraction of a second, as it reaches the absolute microscopic limit of physical size, it violently detonates. It explodes with a force of billions of nuclear weapons, a blinding localized flash of high-energy gamma rays that pierces the eternal darkness. It is the final agonizing scream of the universe's greatest predator. It is a beautiful, tragic spark of light in a cosmos that has been dead for a googol years. And then the light fades, the energy dissipates into the infinitely expanding void. The black hole is entirely gone. The space it once occupied is completely empty. The black hole era is officially over. The universe is now nothing but a vast, infinitely expanding sea of highly diluted freezing photons and subatomic particles. The temperature of reality drops to absolute zero. The last remnant of matter has vanished into radiation. You might think this is the ultimate peaceful end, the true final stillness, but the expanding void is not quite finished yet. Because dark energy, the relentless force that tore the superclusters apart, is preparing one final violent act that will rip apart the very fabric of existence itself. The evaporation of the last black hole marks the official beginning of the dark era, a time when the universe is nothing more than a highly diluted soup of photons and subatomic particles. You might think that this is the absolute end of physics, a state of maximum entropy, where absolutely nothing can ever happen again. This scenario is known as the heat death of the universe, and for a long time scientists believed it was the only logical conclusion to our cosmic story. But there is a second, far more violent and terrifying possibility lurking in the equations of dark energy. If the repulsive force of dark energy remains constant, the universe simply fades into a frozen eternal silence. However, what if dark energy is not constant? What if it is actively growing stronger over time? This terrifying hypothesis leads us to the ultimate cosmological nightmare known as the Big Rip. In the Big Rip scenario, the acceleration of the expanding universe does not just push galaxies away from one another. As the eons roll by, the phantom energy driving the expansion grows so exponentially powerful that it begins to overcome the fundamental forces holding smaller structures together. Long after the black holes have evaporated, the fabric of space-time itself begins to stretch at a rate that approaches infinity. The expanding void literally starts to tear itself apart at the seams. If any macroscopic objects had somehow miraculously survived the degenerate era, they would be subjected to a horrifying physical unraveling. First, the dark energy would become strong enough to overcome gravity on a planetary scale. Any remaining dead rocky worlds or frozen moons would be violently ripped apart, their tectonic plates shattered, and their mantles scattered into the void. But the phantom energy does not stop there. It continues to accelerate, eventually overwhelming the electromagnetic force. The very chemical bonds holding molecules together are brutally severed. The carbon, the oxygen, the iron. Everything is reduced to a chaotic cloud of single isolated atoms. And then in the final fraction of a second of the universe's existence, the dark energy becomes infinitely strong. It overpowers the strong nuclear force, the fundamental glue that holds the nucleus of an atom together. Protons and neutrons are violently torn apart into their constituent quarks. Even the fundamental particles themselves are ripped to shreds. The very fabric of reality, the underlying grid of space-time, completely unravels. In the Big Rip, the universe does not end in a whimper. It ends in an infinite, unimaginable scream, a violent tearing of existence into absolute nothingness. Whether our universe ends in the slow freezing silence of the heat death, or the apocalyptic violence of the Big Rip, the ultimate destiny of our cosmic neighborhood, is a terrifying, deeply humbling realization. We are currently hurtling toward a multi-galactic collision that will forge a monster, and eventually we'll be erased by the relentless march of infinite time. But looking into this abyss of deep time should not fill us with despair. Instead, it gives a profound, beautiful and urgent meaning to our current existence. You and I happen to live in the brief golden age of the universe. We exist in the stelliferous era, a magical fleeting moment in the grand cosmic timeline when the galaxies are still vibrant and alive. The night sky above us is filled with the light of active burning stars painting the darkness with nebulas and constellations. The cosmic dance of creation and destruction is still unfolding before our very eyes, sculpting new worlds and forging the heavy elements necessary for life. We are the lucky few, the temporary consciousness of a universe that is destined for eternal darkness. Every time you look up at the stars, you are witnessing a miracle of timing. You are seeing the universe before the dark times come, before the great attractor crushes us, and before the phantom energy tears reality apart. The impending death of the cosmos is not just a scientific curiosity, it is a harsh, screaming reminder of our own fragile temporary place in a violent, uncaring void. We are a spark of awareness in a universe that is rapidly rushing toward oblivion. But while the slow multi-trillion-year death of the universe is a certainty, the immediate future of our own tiny solar system is far less secure. The grand cosmic forces we've explored today are vast and slow, but there are other far more aggressive monsters hiding in the dark right now. Next week, we're going to uncover a cosmic anomaly that is not waiting billions of years to strike. We're going to track down a terrifying phenomenon known as rogue black holes. These are invisible, starving predators that were violently ejected from their home galaxies during ancient collisions. And right now, astronomical data suggests that a massive swarm of these orphaned black holes is wandering dangerously close to our cosmic neighborhood. They emit no light, they make no sound, and they are hurtling through the dark at millions of kilometers per hour. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because you absolutely do not want to miss what is hunting us in the dark, and how humanity might just have to face an invisible apocalypse in our own lifetime.